Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this webinar on hospice chaplaincy in the age of COVID-19. My name is Michael Skaggs. I'm the Executive Director of the Chaplaincy Innovation Lab, and I'm very happy to welcome our panel today to talk with us about a really important and timely topic. For almost the past 50 years, hospice has played an important role in ensuring Americans had a death defined by self-determination, dignity, and comfort. But now in the age of COVID-19, it is challenged, as are all of our healthcare institutions, to address the needs of so many dying Americans and their families while living in a world of social distancing and quarantine. Today, we have brought together a group of hospice chaplains from across the country to share not only their experiences and the innovations that they're seeing, but also to have a chance for you attending this webinar to dialogue with them and share your own experiences and innovations in these challenging times. We are supposed to have one more person with us, and hopefully if they are able to jump in, we will see them in a little while. But in the meantime, let me introduce the rest of our panelists, and then we will get started. John Tastad is the Coordinator for Spiritual Support Services at Sharp Hospice Care and Coordinator for Advanced Care Planning for the Advanced Care Planning Program at Sharp Healthcare. In his 20th year at Sharp, John is actively involved in bioethics education and consultation, and his academic training includes undergraduate studies at Northwest Christian University and the University of Oregon, and graduate studies at Fuller Theological Seminary and the University of San Diego. Marie Philomène Péan is a board-certified chaplain and spiritual director. Originally from Haiti, she graduated from Andover Newton in the Doctor of Ministry program. She is a certified spiritual director and a member of Spiritual Directors International. Her many occupations, and I know what it's like to do this, interfaith chaplain at Merrimack Valley Hospice in Lawrence, Massachusetts, a chaplain for Christian members of Jewish communities of New Bridge on the Charles and Dedham, Massachusetts, and the Simon C. Fireman community in Randolph, Massachusetts. And finally, she serves the needs of the local and worldwide Haitian community by providing online spiritual resources in Haitian Creole through pite.org. And we'll have a link to all of this after the webinar as well in the materials that we send out. And then finally, Dr. Bethany Turner has a master's in organizational leadership from Gonzaga University and a doctorate in pastoral community counseling from the University of Sarasota. For nearly 20 years, she has bridged the worlds of patient-centered care and measurable outcomes in spiritual care. Dr. Turner is passionate about facilitating a broader understanding of the role and value of professional clinical spiritual care in healthcare. Her research and presentations have led organizations to expand spiritual care services and upgrade charting systems. Currently, Dr. Turner is the Southern California Regional Co-Lead for Spiritual Care for Kaiser Permanente and an adjunct professor at Woodbury University. The fact that it took me a couple of minutes to get through all that tells you that our panelists are very much engaged in all of this work and certainly very accomplished. So we thank all of you for taking some time out of your day to come join us for this. So with that, let me turn it over to John. I'm going to bring up our webinar slides. I'll turn my webcam off. I'll still be here in the background. You can use the chat function to send myself or other people messages. Please also use the question box. You can send questions, and we'll have a Q&A period towards the end of the webinar. So let me get to John here. I'll turn my webcam off. All right.
Great. Thank you very much, Michael. And thank you all so very much for being here today. I am thrilled to be a part of this conversation and appreciate all of the efforts that so many are doing during this challenging time. There are a couple of very positive aspects that have surfaced for me during this difficult season in life's journey. And one of them is I'm really enjoying having hair that is reminiscent of my time in the 1970s. It seems as though we're all flashing back to an earlier era with regards to style, at least with hairstyles that are concerned. But more than that, of course, I'm so appreciative of collaboration that's happening right now, maybe in a manner that I've never seen in the 20 plus years that I've been at Sharp Healthcare. Sharp is a large healthcare delivery system in San Diego County. We have 5 acute care centers, a health plan, 3 medical groups, and a host of ancillary services. So as coordinator of the spiritual care department for Sharp Hospice Care, I'm thrilled by the collaboration that's taking place amongst the spiritual care departments across the SHARP system. We are meeting regularly to strategize, to share resources, to share ideas, to even borrow personnel as needed. And it's been a really beautiful time of working together here at SHARP Healthcare. And I'm really grateful for the opportunity to be working together with all of you today by sharing ideas and how to provide hospice chaplaincy in the most effective manner possible in the age of COVID-19. Michael, next slide, please. So I'm excited to share the picture of this team that I have the privilege of working with. They have really stepped up to provide absolutely amazing support during this unprecedented season. The chaplain team at SHARP Hospice Care includes 5 full-time chaplains and 3 per diem chaplains that provide extraordinary support. And I think during this time, they've been stretched and challenged not only to use their masks and PPE very effectively and appropriately, but also to look for innovative and creative ways to make a difference in the lives of not only staff, but the patients and families that they serve. One of the more noticeable aspects that our spiritual care team has stepped up to provides support for staff is a presence during daily huddles. SHARP Hospice Care has 8:15 huddles where interdisciplinary teams gather every morning to review the new admissions, the patients who are on the imminent death protocol list, coordinate and collaborate with regards to care. And since the beginning of COVID-19, chaplains have been charged with providing a daily word of inspiration, reminding the team that they're there to provide support for them. So the teams have been really reaching out to the hospice chaplains to provide emotional, spiritual, and a lot of reassurance and support. And I think that's one of the ways that hospice chaplaincy in the age of COVID-19 has really been called to step up, and that is as being a really increasingly calming, reassuring, and supportive presence to the staff. You see that they've used innovative visit formats as well, and I know that perhaps all of you are connecting with one another as we are today, but not only with staff, but with patients and families in new and creative ways. FaceTime video visits that are all approved by our SHARP Information Services Department and are compliant with HIPAA issues and rules have been utilized to innovatively provide care, even though physical presence has been challenging. And that's been really difficult, hasn't it, to provide this extraordinary gift of presence that we offer at the bedside of the very seriously ill and dying, and to do that either in person with PPE or over the telephone or the FaceTime video telehealth has been really challenging. Next slide, Michael. So in an effort to provide support for the hospice staff, there have been some bursts of creativity that have come forth. And I think that it's been really exciting to see how the spiritual care team has developed a Zoom at noon, as you see on the left flyer that's given there as an example. There are Zoom meetings where clinicians can see one another's faces for just 15, 20 minutes during the middle of a busy day, connecting in their workplace, their new workplace and home. We're all in the age of COVID-19 providing care in just a brand new context in a new way, and to be able to link up and to see one another in the absence of physical connection, it's been really, really beneficial. We see in the middle there the online hand blessing and resiliency webinar that was provided, and that was done by a chaplain and a bereavement counselor who teamed up to provide a special online hand blessing for SHARP staff, hospice care staff members. And then the bereavement counselor shared regarding some tips related to developing resiliency. And I think that's another way that in the age of COVID-19, we're seeing increased collaboration, and that is through bereavement counselors, chaplains, nursing physicians, providers, home health aides, nurses, all working collaboratively to support one another and to support our patients and family members. And then finally, that we had a number of call-ins for day after day, 7 days a week actually, for daily staff respite and check-in calls. And just usually a handful of people would call in and just say, oh, I just needed to talk to somebody from hospice and receive a reassuring word, and the chaplains would be ready to provide support in that context. The message that we're trying to send with all of that during this time, and I think that stepping up in the age of hospice chaplaincy, in the age of COVID-19 as a hospice chaplains, is to send this message that we care about you during this challenging and difficult time. We're here for you. We understand the difficulties, and the best we can, we're being present with you in this time. Next slide, Michael. And I'll conclude with this as my 7 minutes are drawing to a close. In addition to the weekly rounding calls that the spiritual care team has made to all of our home-based palliative care patients and our hospice patients, and that includes patients that had previously declined spiritual support services, the chaplains have made calls, just courtesy calls, saying, just checking in, wanted to see if you had any questions, wanted to see if you had any concerns about how your team is providing care in this season. The chaplains completed and created cards with a little seed packet that was sent to all of the homes of our home-based palliative care patients and our hospice patients. We made it very safe with easy pickup and drop off at the office building with no entrance required to pick up and drop off. When the cards were being completed, they were instructed to wash their hands or use their gloves and carefully before handling the cards or the seed packets. They used wet sponges to moisten the envelope flap, and they went ahead and they added a personal note on there, and that was mailed out to all of the family members and patients at Sharp Hospice and Palliative Care. The message that we wanted to send during that project was, hey, a new season is coming. And I think that's been something in the age of COVID-19 that the spiritual care department, in the midst of all of the existential distress and the moral distress and some of the concerns that have been percolating up for patients and family members and staff members, is just being a beacon of hope that says a new season is coming. And it's been really fun to get feedback from family members and patients who said, we've planted our seeds and they're starting to sprout. We can't wait for the sunflowers to grow and this new season to arrive. And many heartfelt expressions of thanks were offered during that time. And our foundation has picked up on that and has used that theme to reach out to some of our philanthropic contributors at Sharp Hospice Care, and people are being asked to support the great work that hospice does because of that. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Michael, and I look forward to answering any questions or comments that you might have.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, John. And I'll take that chance to remind everyone there is a question function here on that little bar on the right-hand side of your screen. So as things come up, please do drop them in there. There's a couple coming in there, so please keep that going as things come to mind. We'll move on now to Philomène Péan, and I will turn it to you. Philomène, you're muted still. Philomène has her own IT department. Would that we were all so lucky.
Okay, good. Sorry.
You're good. All right.
That's great. Okay. So, yeah, thank you all for joining us, especially my colleagues at Mary McValley and Hospice. I'm not going to the slides. They are for visual learners. What are the best practices that Hospice Chaplain bring to the team, patients, family during COVID-19? And the first slide, Michael, is Chaplain's journey with, okay, that's great. Chaplain's journey with COVID-19. My uncle died a few weeks ago in New York with COVID-19-like symptoms. I was with my cousin on the phone when he expired. As a chaplain, I offered prayers and comfort to his family and his extended family. I'm from Haiti, and culturally, you don't talk about death when someone is sick. Therefore, although I saw all the signs that he needed hospice, I didn't offer hospice services to him or his family. However, I reached out to my family, and although I could not go into details. I try as I could to prepare them for his eventual death. I regret that I couldn't offer hospice services to my uncle. I know he would have benefited from our admission team, physician, clinical managers, social workers, nurses, chaplains, home health aide, volunteers, the corporate system, as well as other agencies affiliated to our Merrimack Valley Hospice Institution. But this was not possible because of our cultural limitation. Imagine just one person having an orchestra playing for you, seeking to provide the best care for you on your journey. Who would not appreciate that personal attention? Ministry of Presence. Next slide, Michael. Ministry of Presence. During the COVID-19 crisis, Ministry of Presence. Yeah, good. During the COVID-19 crisis, we hospice chaplains felt dismissed by the leaders of our various institutions. We were not trained to stay at home while our compatriots are dying alone in our hospitals, private homes, or nursing facilities. It is always important to be at the patient bedside while leaving room for clinicians to provide care. We don't have to talk. Sometimes it could be offering a ministry of presence, a simple word, playing music, or comforting families. The important thing is whatever we do is to be there. Call for PPE, personal protective equipment. At the first outbreak, we chaplains were in the field, but there was not enough PPE for chaplains. Our institution asks us to work remotely. We need to be tested, get PPEs in order to rejoin other clinicians in the field. Adapted forms of spiritual care. Michael? Next. Next, Michael. How to remotely provide spiritual care during a pandemic? First, we have to experience the sensation of distance ourselves. The chaplain's manager asks us to have our monthly meeting by chatting on our tablet. The experience was limited. Imagine 10 chaplains chatting at the same time. We advocated to have teleconference, then Zoom. It was a big relief to be able to see each other and share our common mission. Now our institution is promoting telehealth. Chaplains will be able to see our patients in the house, and they could also request to talk to us. I felt separated from my patients, especially those who don't have a smartphone. Although I learned a lot about my patients through their families, friends, or institution, I miss that physical presence. Giving the use of new technologies to create relationship with family and staff, I experienced new ways of relating, which I would not achieve in a regular situation. Hospice and bereavement. With hospice, the journey continues after death. We have a bereavement coordinator. We will call families when the patient died. But for me as chaplain, I call every patient's family upon death and take time to listen to their grief. I wish that my uncle family would find a professional grief counselor to journey with them. Chaplain's kit during disaster, pandemic. Michael, next slide. What do we bring? Yes, what do we bring to our patients? Hope. The first one is hope. When I go to visit patients, I bring with me 3 elements: a smartphone, a portable speaker, and a prayer shawl. With these things, I can communicate with patients in different languages and traditions. I could read a poem, play music, read the Bible, sing contemporary songs, or meditate. I always ask the patient or the family, what gives you hope and where do you find strength in your life? Next, Michael. Faith. I explore the patient's faith and their family's faith. It is so good to offer a mini liturgy to a patient depending on that person's denomination. Once I was talking to a Jewish patient and I asked her, should I call a rabbi? She answered, You are my rabbi. During COVID-19, I offered funeral services on Zoom. That's another way to connect with families. At Simon C. Fireman, which is a senior independent living Jewish community in Boston, I offered spiritual support to Haitian residents. It makes a lot of difference for those residents to talk about death and dying, as well as the pandemic crisis in their native tongue. Love! Love is our password. We need to love and be passionate for the work we do. In this time that we chaplains who cannot be present, we are grateful for all those health and essential workers who through their occupations are that presence that the patient truly needs. We die if we don't have a vision. How can we best provide spiritual care for our patients, family, and staff that anyone who come in contact with us would desire to use our hospice services? We chaplains of our institution, it is up to us to assure the future of our profession by recruiting new chaplains. Chaplains, it's time for renewal. Write down your vision. Establish peer groups to share your struggle. Practice self-care through meditation or spiritual direction. In these times of crisis, we'll survive if we make hope, faith, and love our daily logo. Next, Michael, as I sing to my patients, I'll now sing for you. Michael, could you click? Faith, hope, and love, let these endure among you. And the greatest of these is love. The greatest of these is love. Michael, do we have time? Because I would like to invite all of chaplains, all of you to sing with me. Can we sing it all together now, wherever you are? Faith, hope, and love, let these endure among you. And the greatest of these is love. The greatest of these is love. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Philomène. And I apologize for everyone for the slides skipping forward. I'm trying to figure out why that's happening, so bear with me. But don't worry, as with all the webinars, we do post any materials afterwards on the website with the recording. So if you happen to miss it, or if I can't get it to keep going ahead too fast, don't worry. You will have access to all of them later, and you can proceed through them at your own pace. So we'll turn now to Dr. Bethany Turner. Bethany, take it away.
Perfect. Thank you. I just want to say thank you. I see that we have 129 people on here. So it was always lovelier when I can see people's faces. I think we're all experiencing that. But thank you for joining us today. I have the honor of being part of or leading a group of 45 chaplains for Southern California. And we are across the spectrum of continuum of care, inpatient, outpatient, palliative, hospice, home care. And I want to echo what some of my colleagues have said here is that this has definitely been an interesting time of collaboration and creativity. And we also meet once a week. Actually, all 45 of us meet via a Teams meeting to check in and share what's working, what's not working. So I do want to talk a little bit about home care, hospice, spiritual care in the midst of the pandemic. But I also want to say that I, as a regional leader and administrator, I sit with leadership. And so I'm hearing more and more this word new normal. And overnight, 90% of our care for every discipline went to telehealth medicine, except for the nurses in the hospital and physicians. And some of the physicians were telehealth into the hospitals. So, and that was primarily to conserve resources for PPE, which I've taken the perspective that is a ministry of presence, that by making that sacrifice to physically be there,
Bethany, I'm sorry to interrupt, but you are a person with hair, which means that your hair is interfering with your microphone. If you
That's
could,
okay.
if
Can
you
you
could just
hear
sort
me
of,
better now?
yeah, perfect, perfect.
I can
It's not
hold
a
it up.
problem
No
I have, but if you could just keep it out there, that'd be great. Thank you very
That
much.
was well handled. Thank you.
Bring it on away.
So in any case, next slide. So I want to focus today, if we can do the next, there we go, on three areas that have been at the forefront of all of our conversations, discussion, planning. And I did specifically use this image of hands not touching each other and not touching the world, because I think this is an image for me that represents this all in this together from a distance. And it's not just here in this country, it's worldwide. And so for many of our staff and others, this image of being all in this together with heart, maybe not physically touching, but with heart, with love, as our colleague said, has been an uplifting image for people. And I'm going to touch on three areas that have tremendously been affected and I think will continue to be influenced going forward post COVID pandemic when we move into recovery and our new normal. So if you could click the next slide, I'll start with Chaplain, Self-Care and Resilience. Immediately, as social media hyped all of the horror stories that we've heard from all over the world, way back in January and so forth, I started calling colleagues of mine in Europe and Italy. I wanted to know, how bad is it? What are you facing? How do I best prepare our staff just in case? And so we took an intentional approach right away to self-care for the chaplains, chaplain resilience. We had speakers, we had didactics, we had dialogues, we had journaling, we had practice, really focusing on filling our cups so that we can have those practices firmly in place. We all learn them, we all know them, they were reinforced in CPE, but we really wanted to be intentional about making sure we were mission ready. I have some background consulting with the military, so we pulled some of those mission ready techniques as well. So you'll see the challenges we faced. Increased workloads, different workloads, they looked different. So we encourage people to focus on getting enough sleep, hydration, exercise in whatever form that might be, walks, and whatever their spiritual practice is, to really intentionally do that. And we encourage our staff to do that start of day every day, to really check in with themselves, much like our places have these COVID check-ins for symptoms. Do you have a fever? Do you have this? We really wanted them to check in on their self-care. We had a lot of, as many of you seen, a higher level of organizational distress and increased moral distress. So we did some training on resiliency using what's called a name, claim, and reframe method. So let's name the authenticity of our feelings, let's claim them, and let's look at how we can reframe them to give us life and power to move forward. We've also been practicing and adopting what's called the PTG, post-traumatic growth strategies, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. This has been incredibly helpful. If you haven't looked into this, there's 5 areas and questions that are helpful for us, for our staff, even for patients. Everybody's going through this pandemic together. We had increased moral distress, so we wanted to make sure we had room for that. So we created a buddy system. Every chaplain has a buddy, and they do a weekly or even daily check-in. And then we do a weekly check-in as a team. Work-life balance. One of the really important things we've learned is that there needs to be rituals for people. That's for us, for our staff, for our patients, but particularly for us and our staff. A start of day ritual, an end of day ritual. We've put out hand washing prayers that people can say about, as I wash my hands, I do so to protect myself, my family, and strangers and all over the world. Others are doing the same, to really reuniting prayer. We had a military chaplain of 30 years retired come and talk to us, and he talked about a burden tree that he would hang his burdens on every day as he left. When he got home, he'd hang them on this imaginary tree in his front yard, not take them into his house. So people have been engaging creatively ways to start and end their workday in order to balance my responsibilities to home, my responsibilities to work, my responsibilities to self. And then we are working remotely. Many of us are now telehealth. They're working remotely in an outpatient. And so we've been sharing best practices via email. We have a SharePoint and also in our meetings so that we can really garner what's working, what's not working to give best practice. Next slide. Perhaps the biggest change we saw is our staff when people are striving for resiliency, they automatically go to spiritual care. So overnight, the organization more than ever has seen the value of spiritual care and our place at the table. And we have come up with so many more new ways to support our staff. So you can see a list here. We have daily reflections. We have Teams meetings with quotes of inspiration. All of our meetings are started that way. We have rituals for shift change. We do regular rituals, and then we have ones that we help people create for themselves, whether that's their fight song as they come to work or go home. We have a midweek Teams meeting with a meditation and a debrief space. So it's a virtual chapel, if you will. And interestingly enough, we have seen more attendance in that than the organization has seen in any group for support across the organization. So, you know, the numbers do matter. We do have to measure, we have to show what we can do and how, and that has been a really interesting piece. We do intentional outreach to staff and rounding with managers to see if there's anybody that needs extra support. As the chaplain who spoke to us from the military said, it's always easier to apologize for overstepping than to regret not asking. I think we all saw the physician who ended her own life back east, and that is a devastating loss. So I would certainly rather apologize than have that loss happen again. We're honoring truth, people's truth, affirming it, and then reframing. People are having to live in tents outside their house. They've sent their children to live with other people. They have some real grief, some real authentic pains happening. And we listen, we affirm those, and then we help them find a way forward. We are on call 24/7. Not all of us. We're trading off because we need time to rest too. But there's a chaplain 24/7 available to staff. We have worked on reframing this image of hero. This is really big out there. And we did a whole meditation on it and then sent it out, just reminding everyone that they don't have to be superheroes and there are subtle ways to be heroes. And um, it's a shared burden, not because sometimes that term hero, which it might sound nice, can be overwhelming for people if they're already in a state of exhaustion and moral distress. And they didn't sign up for this, and they don't necessarily want to be someone's hero. They just want to do the best they can. And so we reframed that. Trauma-informed care, we had training for all of our chaplains and our staff now on what it is to do trauma-informed care, to recognize it in ourselves and others, and how to navigate that. Again, the PTG, post-traumatic growth training, to help people reframe a way forward. It's basically, the idea is that when your whole world is turned upside down, you have the opportunity to choose how you want your new normal to be. So picking out your priorities, reinforcing your spiritual care, finding out who your tribe is that supports you. There's basically 5 areas. There's advocating for self-care. We do what's called the 5 daily exhale activities. So I have them write down 5 healthy things they do, whatever that is: running, coffee, meditation, music, and they are intentionally encouraged to do 3 a day on a good day and 1 on a day that's rougher, just sort of to front load resilience. And then, of course, we are working on cultivating an attitude of gratitude and living in the moment. Anytime people are going through something stressful, it's what can I do today? And we pulled the gratitude piece from, we have some patients in hospice that lived through World War II. We had one that actually was born during the last pandemic. And they've really talked about resiliency being based in gratitude for any tiny blessing in the day. So we use those stories from our patients to reinforce that wisdom for our staff. Next slide. Next slide. Hopefully, there we go. So these are not our staff. I actually pulled these images from the internet, but I did want to talk about patient and family care. Almost overnight, home care and hospice transitioned to telehealth due to COVID-19. And this is for infectious control measures and resources. We don't want to spread it to our staff, our fragile patients. We don't want to spread it to the community. And so I like this expression, necessity is the mother of invention, because I think that has been at the forefront of everything we've done during this. Some interesting findings or outcomes that I think are actually quite positive. You know, we have this worry about touch and ministry of presence. We have found through trial and error and shared experience that we can have a ministry of presence, an expanded ministry of presence in telemedicine. So we've noticed that there's been an increase in the number of patients and families that are receptive to spiritual care. Part of that is because sometimes patients don't always want us to come because they feel vulnerable or don't want to be seen or they don't look the same. And it's a little more anonymous on the phone. Some of it has to do with being in a compounded pandemic state. But we actually went up to 95% of our caseloads are now accepting care from spiritual care. And those who aren't are only doing so because they have their own religious leader that they're reaching out to. We're using email, text, phone, and video platform that is, of course, approved by the organization. Text and email are interesting. We let the patients initiate the texts and the emails first, the first contact, and then we can respond. That's how we've navigated that piece. Chaplains training and patients and families to use the platforms. We've actually been training people to use technology. I used one family taught them how to use Zoom so that they could set up their Bible study they previously held in their home, and that has been a great source of support. We have an increased sense of purpose. I know that people talk about people's purpose being challenged, but medicine is medical practice. It's always been about new innovations and new discoveries. And the more we lean into that and all of these new things that are coming out and this all in this together, there's purpose in that. And it's powerful and palpable. And even just setting up this list was helpful to people to see all of the amazing things that come out of this. We have increased frequency of visits. You know, we used to have to drive and that limited things, but now we don't. So we can reach out to our patients more frequently. We can actually reach out to more of their family members. So we facilitate video chats where their whole family gets to be on with the patient, where they wouldn't have known how to navigate that before, but our platform is so easily accessible that we can set that up for families. I've held family meetings. I'll be doing one this Saturday. We have an increased list of community resources. So, you know, everybody went to online. And so churches, community groups, they've all set up stuff. We use resources through YouTube, like Liquid Mind, to help create that sacred space of warm music that helps reduce anxiety and pain. Remote rites and rituals, especially end of life and funerals. Really interestingly, finding where we used to come in as the chaplains and holiness, if you will, was assigned to us. Now we come on the phone and maybe I've texted their daughter a prayer and then I'm reading the prayer, but the whole family has their hands extended over their loved one. And so now families are participating in those sacred moments. They're not assigning them. They feel like they're in this with their loved one and they're participating. And that's been a beautiful. I've actually seen some priests that have family go get olive oil and they anoint it via phone. And then the family member anoints their loved one. And they feel like they've done something. They've helped to bring their loved one peace. And previously that would have just an observation role, but now they're in this sacred moment and they love it. Tons of good feedback. For our Catholic families who couldn't get Sacrament of the Sick, we reinstated. If you haven't already done this, I highly recommend it. The little brown scapulars. They were used during the pandemic of 1918. Many Catholics have forgotten about them, but they hold space. If the priest can't get there or with this remote sacrament, it really gives people assurance, and we've had tons of great feedback about them. Some of my elderly patients have found a little pep in their step because their family members are asking them, have you ever been through anything like this? How do we do this? I was talking to a 90-year-old woman yesterday, and she said, I've never actually seen anything of this magnitude, but my family's calling me to ask for my wisdom of how to navigate that. And that's life-giving for her. We've had a lot of elderly people say, now that we're all isolated, I have more access to people than ever before. So there's less isolation for our patients. I know the biggest challenge that people talk about is that being able to touch. And so we've really been working intentionally with eye contact, with voice tone. You can really communicate your heart through your voice and through your eye contact if you have video. And people can feel you. I had a patient the other day say to me, I feel your presence here, and it is so warm, and it is so wonderful. So we've really been working about voice inflection, speaking from the heart, listening to the tone. If I'm on the phone, I'm listening for changes in the patient's tone and asking, you know, I hear this, what's that about? So I do think that some of this telehealth is here to stay for a while. So I highly encourage people to continue brainstorming, and I'm excited for the new ways that we can try to adapt and evolve our field. because I do think there's some really great outcomes. Certainly more time available to be with staff and families because we're not taking it up driving. We're not, yeah, it's not eaten up with other things. So thank you. I think that's my 7 minutes.
Well, we have plenty of time. You know, we plan on having a bigger panel, so we have plenty of time left here for Q&A, which is great because we have some great questions coming through here. So let me just jump right in. You know, the questions sort of follow the order of the presenters, but not necessarily. So I'm just going to jump in and grab some of these out of here. One question has to do with sort of the long-term planning and deployment of the plans that you all are making. Of course, so many things that you've had to figure out over the past couple of weeks have been, how do we respond right now? What kind of long-term plans are you making? Whether it's, you know, is this going to change our practice, you know, permanently? Or, you know, we have no idea when this is going to end, so we need to stretch this out as long as possible. You know, what does the long-term planning look like for this? And that's for all of you, I think.
Did you want us to go in certain order? Or?
Go ahead, Philomène.
Can you hear me? Oh, sure. I think right now that's what I was asking. I was saying, okay, we need to have like a plan, like for our institution to provide PPEs for us. So normally, as for instance, at Mary McValley Hospice, so we work remotely. As I said, we were not trained to stay home. So if maybe they provide good equipment, and the same way, for instance, as hospice chaplain, we are trained. We used to deal with any infectious disease, and we know we usually have the proper equipment for that. So if we have our gowns and we can always do like washing our hands and so on, so we can go back to the field. And for instance, our institution sent us like the thermometer. I think we will have to maybe check ourselves like every morning to see if we have like any symptoms COVID-19. And then what I could also tell people that when we go, for instance, for us, we go to people's house or nursing homes or hospitals, they would not allow us to be there without maybe they check our temperature. So it's to be well equipped. I think that will be, and then the second thing, that would be one. And then the second thing I would say, for instance, if every month, in a monthly basis, we have to be tested to see if we are not bringing the virus to people. Because my personal experience before coming, I was exposed to so many people, and after a week, when I heard that so-and-so died, so-and-so died, but I was with them 1 week before. So a long-term plan. So we have to go back to the field and then give us the good PPEs that we can do our work.
Great, thank you. Bethany, John?
I'll go ahead and go. I really don't think that based on what I'm hearing from leadership and even some of the financial benefits of having telehealth be at the forefront, healthcare was headed towards telehealth anyways. It was just going to take 5 years. I've been seeing the 5-year plans that were laid out prior to all this happening. So I don't think that I would be surprised if we ever go back to before. So I've really been encouraging our staff to remember, I'm never going to have the waistline I had 20 something years ago in my 20s. Things are never going to be who I was 2 months ago. So, you know, owning the grief, it's there for sure. But we're really focused on, in healthcare, we have 3 phases: the crisis phase, well, preparing for the crisis phase, and we may be seeing another one in the fall. And then recovery phase. And so we're really focused on what those look like for spiritual care right now. How do we sit at that table? How do we engage and support? I think there's a lot more room for staff support, resiliency training, and then creativity. I'm really helping our team focus on what's working, what's not working. what is, this isn't healthcare of the future anymore. It's the healthcare of the now. And what does our field look like in that space? And I think there might be a hybrid at some point where we get triage cases where families absolutely demand us or right at the bedside at the end of life. That might happen, but right now I'm not hearing that in local, national, or regional levels. So I'm really encouraging our staff to figure out who we are. I got the chance to live in France for a year when I was in college, and it wasn't just learning the language. I had to figure out who I was in that culture. And I think this is a little bit similar to that. Who are we as chaplains in this new culture?
Thank you, Bethany. Michael, if I could just jump in, we'd established visit tiers that were pretty helpful during the initial days of COVID-19 for our spiritual care providers, and those have been adjusted as we've understood the patient needs better, the virus better. We've had increased access to PPE, so that's changed. But one of the things that's going to be really interesting is looking back at quality metrics and how our shift to telehealth and virtual visits have really impacted our customer satisfaction, our patient satisfaction, and so we're really looking at seeing did those tiers really establish something that might be implemented as we move forward. We're beginning to look at that as the door for increased visit frequency is propping open a little bit more. Is that what patients and families need, or can we kind of continue as we have been during COVID-19? So I think visit frequency, and I also think that maybe even caseload and caseload management will, as we plan for further care, might get based upon some of the quality metrics that we see, might get some good consideration.
There was another question about how relatives are being cared for right now. And Bethany, you got at this a little bit, especially with bringing relatives into a participatory manner of providing the spiritual care, which is just a wonderful image. But especially for John and Philomène, where do families fall into the changes that you've seen?
I think that care for the family remains a critical part of the chaplaincy plan of care, for sure, and it's been much more creative. I liked what Bethany was saying about text messaging. We've had increased efforts by family members to reach out to the hospice chaplaincy teams and being available. And I like how you're being available 24/7 as well for not only patients but family members. And I think that families are feeling and particularly those who are remaining in a supportive caregiving role in the homes, are feeling a heightened sense of vulnerability right now during this time, and that a large focus of the spiritual care department can be on providing that reassurance and working together from an interdisciplinary perspective to provide reassurance with regards to the care that they're offering and providing that support. So yeah, it's been kind of aligned with how we've communicated with patients. It's a lot of telehealth and for us, but I think that we've learned some things that we might be able to pick up moving forward in that regard as well.
I think you're still muted, Philip.
Yes.
There you go.
So thank you. So for us, we truly take time with families, and as I said before, it's a great opportunity for maybe for us to relate to our families. Usually, when we would go to visit our patients, especially those who are in nursing homes, so it would be like mostly the patients, and then when you call the family to say, "Oh yes, I went to visit your dad," and then to say, "Oh fine, bye." But now we have more time, and then I will say, "Oh, tell me more about your dad, tell me more about your mom," and then I learn from them. And what I did, before we have to visit someone, we have to check maybe what other clinicians did. So for instance, yesterday, before visiting somebody, I checked the notes, and then I saw that the social worker talk to the one who is healthcare proxy. So, and I said, oh no, I'm not going to call that same person. I called the other one. And then I said, okay, the social worker gave the update to about your mom, but so I'd like to know how are you doing? And then she was very touched because to say, oh wow, thank you so much for reaching out. so and then so she took time. Actually, yesterday she told me that there is a big event in her mom's life. And then so for instance, I'm not going to say anything more, but she said, in which date that will be my mom's birthday. And I said, wow, that's great. And then on that date, I'm going to call your mom to sing happy birthday. And then so we do that. And so it's good. And then before I used to go, before maybe the pandemic, maybe let's say 2 or 3 weeks before we used to work remotely, I used to go to the nursing homes, for instance, and then I would do FaceTime and put the families in the FaceTime while I was with patients. So there's a lot of way to connect with them, and so far it's been great. And then they also call me. Let me share something with a veteran. I think it's very important what we do with families. I used to call a veteran, and then most of the time he would say, no, thank you. It's like 5 minutes, or thank you very much. Imagine one day I called that person and I said, oh, good morning, so and so, and this is Philomène. I'm a chaplain. He said, chaplain? And I said, yes. And then he said, Philomène, could you allow me to be myself? And I said, sure. He started to cry. He said, you truly make my day, because I was in a bad situation. I was thinking nobody thinks about me. And for you to call me to say that I am thinking of you, I am praying for you, so that means a lot to me. So those are all the areas that we check with patients as well as families.
So I would just like to add, one of the things that we have noticed is that where we might have previously talked to the patient and whoever the primary caregiver was, or the patient and the DPOA for that phone call you were mentioning about the nursing home, now we actually call every member of the family that is listed, and we reach out to them and we ask, would you like me to call you next week? Would you like me to call you in 2 weeks just to check in? And so, I mean, I think part of that has been why we've seen an increase in the number of families receptive, because especially like Saturday, I'm doing a family meeting via the platform we have. The son is in England, the daughter is in Vermont, the patient is here in San Diego, and they can't get here, and there's a lot of family discord, and the patient's wish is to try to find some kind of reconciliation. And so being able to have that kind of access to the whole family, and yeah, we actively call every person on that list too. So that's really been an increase. I would have never had the time to do that before.
Yeah. Well, there are so many questions here, and I wish that we had much more time to get to all of them. We're getting to the top of the hour here, and I know that everyone has a busy day to get back to as well. Let me just give our panelists one more opportunity. If there's anything else you'd like to add before we close up, you have a couple of minutes here.
I would just say that if you want to send any questions my way via email that I can answer, I think it's important that we continue these dialogues and this collaboration. We're all in this together. So, there's a lot of wisdom amongst our field. That's something I've been deeply appreciative for. I say to my staff, for 45 chaplains, I couldn't imagine being in this trench with anyone else. And I'm so grateful for all your gifts and talents. So, continue sharing and dialoguing. So you're welcome to use my email if you want to send it to anybody that has a specific question for me. I'm more than happy to continue that dialogue.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. John, you're muted. Still muted. Maybe I don't know if your microphone maybe came unplugged or.
Oh, there we go. I think it did. There you are. Thank you. That's on the bingo game again for telehealth. Another one, another mute. Yeah. feel free to contact me. I as well with any individual questions about anything that's happening at Sharp or in San Diego. And I just am so touched today by the heroic ways in which spiritual caregivers are stepping up to be present with people in a time when it's really tough to be present. And the stories in the media about chaplaincy and mostly the acute care context across the country have been really inspirational to me and very moving. And it's so, spiritual care is always an important component of whole person care. But right now, I think we see in a beautiful way the critical nature of effective spiritual support services in the midst of tough times. And thank you all so much for providing your leadership and your presence.
And for me, what I would like to say, don't wait at the last minute to sign up for hospice, because we provide a lot. So especially now in the COVID-19 crisis, people come like one day before, 24 hours, like, no, we have a lot to offer. So, and if you allow me to talk to my Haitians, because some of them are there watching at me, even though it's not part of our culture, please reach out to me, get my email, call, and then I would like to perhaps to explain more about hospice. So for all of you, don't wait at the last minute, because we have a lot to offer. Hospice is very good. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you all again for your time. This has been absolutely wonderful, as are all of our panelists on our webinar, so thank you. If you happen to come late to the webinar, don't worry. These are all recorded, and so it will go up on the website here in the next couple of days, and everybody who registered will get a link to the recording automatically, so you don't have to worry about that. We'll post the slides there as well, so you have all the information that that you could want from the webinars. I do want to mention that if you are still interested in care from a distance, our partner, the CSU Shiley Institute for Palliative Care, is having another webinar this afternoon at noon Pacific, 3 o'clock my time, Eastern time. This is their 5th telemedicine open forum. This time they have Judy Long, who is a palliative care chaplain at UCSF, and they're going to have a great discussion on creating boundaries and intimacy that allow you to connect with patients from a distance. And so this goes a little bit beyond just hospice, and it's beyond, you know, this audience is mostly for medical doctors and other sort of hands-on physical practitioners, but of course chaplains have a lot to learn there as well. So if you have time this afternoon, I encourage you to go check that out. Thank you all again for your time. Have a wonderful afternoon, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye. Oh, I just saw a question. My apologies. If you would like to go to that webinar, chaplaincyinnovation.org/webinars. You can find the information there and sign up right now. All right, thank you. I'll let you go. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.